Look at this mansion. We are about to meet up with one of the most successful real estate brokers in all of LA, and he's gonna teach us on how to make millions investing and selling real estate.
The secret to real estate is to diversify. You're in competition with only one person, and that's yourself. Look at the mirror, tell that person what you want, and go after it.
Do you think there's gonna be a financial crash or a real estate crash in the near future?
Here's the thing.
Albert!
Kevin!
You got the Lamborghini,
What's
man.
up, bud?
Crazy, man. Good to see you.
Likewise,
Good to see you.
likewise. How you doing?
Yeah. Thanks for allowing us at your property today.
It's our pleasure.
So,
Pleasure.
for the audience watching, who are you, man? And what do you do for work?
My name is Albert Harapedian. I'm from Arbitrage Incorporated. We invest in real estate. We help buyers and sellers buy and sell real estate. We've done some financing. We've had a ton of fun with the whole real estate enterprise. So it's been an amazing adventure. Almost going on 30 years now. So you want to see something cool?
Yes.
You want to see the car collection?
Let's check it out.
Let's do it.
So, what do we have here?
All right, well, first off, we have our fourth Escalade.
Your
Cadillac
fourth Escalade.
Yeah.
Okay.
My wife is a diehard Cadillac fan.
Okay.
So she refuses to drive anything else, especially with 3 kids.
Yeah.
It's really easy to use. It's very easy to travel with.
How much you got this one for?
This one, I believe, was about 110,000.
110,000.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
We got the Jeep here.
Oh, this guy's fun. So I like off-roading. We got a place up in Big Bear. So this is a lot of fun. Off-road, more on the rugged terrains. It pulls like crazy. And the cool thing about this is my son and I fixed up everything here. Everything you see here as far as what's been done to the Jeep has been done with my son and I.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a cool
So
little
you
project.
actually added some of these features
Everything.
to the car?
Yeah. All
Wow.
the stuff that's been added has been done with my son and I.
Amazing.
And I won't do it without his presence. The car that sits in the garage the most, which is the Lamborghini.
What model is this?
It's the LP610.
LP6.
So-
Okay.
It's about 3 seconds, 0 to 60.
3 seconds, 0 to
less.
60.
Yeah.
Wow. How much you got this one for?
Oh, geez. This one was, I paid less than what it's worth today, but it was somewhere just under 200,000. But the interesting thing is, of all the cars here, this is my favorite. The Tesla Y, this is the performance one.
Yeah.
This is 3.1 seconds, 0 to 60.
This is 3.1.
So this guy may be very challenging for the
Wow.
Huracan. So I actually enjoy driving this the most. It's the easiest car to drive. You could literally go to Costco, pick up a 65-inch TV, throw in the back like nothing ever happened. It's so simple.
So this is actually your daily driver
It's
then?
my daily driver. It's probably
Yeah.
the dirtiest out of all 4 cars. I never thought I'd be such an avid Tesla fan and shareholder. It's fast, it's easy, and you just plug it in once every 2 or 3 days, and you're ready to go the next morning.
Yeah, so is that all the cars or?
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
So we've pretty much got a car for every terrain, right?
Okay.
However, the one vehicle that's probably made me over $1 million, follow me. It's the Joyor electric scooter. This thing is versatile. You could fold it. It goes right in your trunk. This thing's been awesome. It hasn't made me $1 million, but it's very simple to ride. It hits actually about 28 miles per hour. So
Wow.
it picks up some speed. You got to be careful.
Yeah.
It's probably dead right now, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, we'll have to take that out for a spin later.
Yeah, yes, we do.
So show us your beautiful house, Albert.
Why, thank you. This home's actually very unique to us. And so we're looking at properties and we couldn't find anything. So we did the most daring thing possible. And it occurred on May 19, 2011. Significantly, I remember that because that's when my daughter was born.
Oh, wow.
And that morning we're sitting with a newborn. No family members had come by to see her yet.
Yeah.
And we got a notification sent to us that there's this property on a great street. And I told her, I'm like, let's go take a look. We might be building a house. She's like, building a house? I thought we were going to buy a house. I'm like, let's go check it out first. So came here. There was this 4-bedroom, single-story ranch-style home with this one oak tree in the backyard. And I'm like, this is our house. So here we are.
Yeah, so wow. Holy cow. Look at this entryway. Albert, crazy house. And just so I know, you built this from the ground up.
No, we built it from the underground up.
Underground up. Okay, so there's a secret basement we're talking
Yeah, we
about
tore
here.
down the house. We actually dug the exact footprint of the house and built an actual floor beneath us. So Kevin, let me show you my home office.
Awesome.
So I don't quite work out of here too often because I actually have an office as well, but I designed this so that when I do work here, it's got the full essentials that I need. The family knows that when I'm in here and doors closed, you leave dad alone.
So these are where the $1 million deals happen, am I correct?
This is where it happens.
I mean, you know, when you're in real estate,
yeah.
I'm sure you're taking calls early in the morning, late at night.
Real estate normally doesn't start until late in the morning or early in the afternoon. So there's really not much going on in the mornings. This office is great at nighttime. When the kids are asleep, you know, the wife is winding down and whatnot, and you come here and just complete focus. And this is where most of my energy comes into plays at nighttime.
Are you a early riser, late sleeper?
Kind of a hybrid of both. So, you know, it's not...
Or just workaholic?
It's not uncommon for me to work out at midnight. But it's
Wow.
also not uncommon for me to wake up at 6 o'clock and start working also. So it all depends. I don't have a set schedule. There is nothing that is set in stone where I got to work from this time to this time, whatever it is. But I try to be as efficient as possible. So let me show you the living room real quick. So this is actually a step down living room. Living rooms are not built as big as they used to be because they're probably the most least used room throughout the entire house. With the dining room, we actually saw this dining room in a magazine clipping.
Oh, really?
And so we saw this and we gave the picture to our designer. We said, this is exactly what we want. And she brought it to life right in our own house. So
wow,
that's kind of cool.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, yeah, take us to the next room, please.
All right, so this is where a lot of fun happens. This is my favorite floor of the house. So this recreation room is pretty much where we have a lot of fun with friends. Whether it's guys hanging out or the kids having their friends coming over, you can play pool, you can play with the foosball. We got an old school arcade game that has Pac-Man, Dig Dug, Space Invaders,
the classics.
all that cool stuff.
Touch on these jerseys a little bit for us. So I noticed you have signed jerseys from some of the most famous athletes in different sports.
Yeah, Tom Brady.
The greatest football player of our time, Tom Brady.
Yes, we got Lionel Messi because my son's a big Messi fan.
How did you gather this collection? Like, I mean, these are probably some of the most rare jerseys I've ever seen.
Well, over time, you know, it's just like anything else. Once you start buying something, it's like getting a tattoo. I'm terrified to get a tattoo because once I get one tattoo, then my entire body's gonna be tattooed. In the meantime, with jerseys, it's, you know, you start off with one and it's like, okay, fine, we gotta fill up the walls. This is our wet bar right here. And I have an interesting story about this beer. I called a friend of mine who actually owns a brewery. He's like, do not dump that beer. This thing's 3 years old and hasn't been bottled yet.
Wow.
And apparently this is good beer, so we'll see if that turns out any good. So,
oh my gosh. Private movie theater in here.
Yeah. What I like about this room, not necessarily watching movies, but you come in, you close the doors, the entire walls are soundproof.
I was gonna say the sound is like, I mean, you probably can't even hear anything from upstairs or even the second floor, really.
No, so if you want to meditate, you want to read a book, you want to just go through emails,
zone out.
This is a place. That's awesome. Yeah, I love this room a lot.
Beautiful.
So Kevin, this is my favorite room in the entire house. I think health is one of the most important things that we take for granted. And so one of the things that I made sure we had was gotta have that home gym.
I mean, you really have everything you need in this gym, really.
We themed the gym. So we call it the Haripedian Powerhouse Gym.
I love that. Yeah, put even your name on the gym. I love that.
We got towels that have embroidered, and I actually had Iron Grip custom engrave the actual logo on the actual
That's awesome.
So
cool. I love that.
So when you're here, you don't feel like you're at home. So we're taking the steps. How about we take up the elevator?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, we're gonna go upstairs. So we'll either see you at the top or from the top. All right.
Oh yeah, there you go. So cool. So we got pool, hot tub, basketball court, obviously. To have this amount of land, I mean, you could almost play like flag football out here.
You know, the most important thing is just for the kids to have fun. Not just our kids, but for other kids as well. And, you know, they have. And their doors are always open for our friends and families to come over and enjoy themselves. And seeing them having fun makes me have fun.
I love that. Albert, thanks again for taking us through your beautiful home, showing off your cars. Amazing. I've never seen a house quite like this.
Our pleasure.
I wanted to really sit down with you though today and hear your secrets, so to speak, of how you've become so successful. So my first question is, take us back, you know, in your early 20s, starting in the real estate industry or starting in a industry, and what is your story like and how did you become an entrepreneur?
Well, first off, there's no secret to it. If you really internalize what you're after, it'll come true. First and foremost, God has been my cornerstone in everything I've achieved. If he wants it to happen, it's going to happen. If he doesn't want it to happen, it's just not going to happen. I've had a lot of things go south on me. And you know what? When you ride those coattails and say there's a bigger purpose in life and there's a reason this happens, then bigger doors open up for you. And it's the greatest and most magical thing ever. I started real estate right when I graduated from UCLA. In fact, I was going to start property management. And so here I was a great writer. I started writing apartment management magazine articles where I was trying to cater to the property owners as far as trying to get them to list their properties with me. And so the initial thing I started with real estate was to do property management. I didn't plan on getting into real estate, but all along growing up, one of the biggest things that I learned was the big money is made in real estate investments. And so my family was into some real estate, and growing up, I saw some of the apartments that my folks were managing and taking the vacancy calls and everything else. I'm like, how do you take this to a greater level? But I'm like, you need to have capital. And in order to have capital, you got to start somewhere else to start preserving the capital and to apply that to acquire these types of properties. So I decided property management was the way to go because that's what I was used to. I heard my mom taking phone calls as far as, they're calling for the 1-bedroom apartment. How many people is this for? Do you have any pets? Show you the property at 3 o'clock this afternoon, etc. So I knew that the investment side was the biggest chapter you had to go after. And 95% of America's wealth is derived from real estate. No matter what industry they're in, real estate is the foundation on the wealth in America today. And so I knew I had to do something with real estate. I started a property management business, but nobody wanted to hire me. They would see this 23-year-old kid, wrote great articles, but as soon as they saw me, they're like, thank you very much, kid, but you know what? We'll just, best of luck, but we decided to go with someone else.
So they wouldn't take you seriously at 23 years old. Yeah.
No, and so I'm like, what is this? I have the knowledge. I could kick ass as far as helping you manage a property, but they just did not want to hire me. So at the time I had my broker's license. I never had my real estate license. I got my broker's license, and I was like, okay, let me just join a real estate office and see what the real estate brokerage world is like. So I stumbled upon Coldwell Banker at the time. I joined Coldwell Banker, and back then, those that have been in real estate for a long time can relate that back then there was 90% of the agents were predominantly women. Okay, there weren't that many male realtors out there, and they were older. And so I walked into this office surrounded with a bunch of female realtors, and I was like the young guy, 23 years old, that's in real estate, trying to make things happen. And I'll distinctly remember back then, $600,000 was like the expensive price point. And I remember going to the break room and seeing there was a listing side and there was a sales side. And I remember one sale or one listing that occurred the first week I started real estate, where the lady came up, she wrote the street address, and she wrote $600,000 on the sales board, on the listing board. A week later, the same properties on the sales board for $600,000. And here I am doing the math, $600,000 at 6% commission equated to $36,000. This lady made $36,000 in 1 week. I was hoping I'd get a property I can make $300 a month managing it for someone, taking care of clogged toilets, taking care of vacancies, possibly painting the property myself. This woman just made $36,000 in 1 week selling real estate. So I'm like, wait a minute here. There's got to be something.
Yeah. So you wanted to get into that. You saw the money.
I saw the money, I saw the ease, and I saw the potential. And I said, how could I make it better? I don't want to replicate what she did. I want to make it better. And so it was at that point in time where I said, you got to know how to market yourself. And literally I would sit behind Microsoft Publisher on a 1997 Dell desktop computer that would crash probably every 2 hours. So I had to hurry up and write my articles, and I would copy and paste and do certain things from the MLS. And literally I had a crash course study as far as Photoshop, Microsoft Publisher, all these things to try to go out there and make myself heard. And so I remember clearly, it was $17 to buy 500 sheets of 11 by 17 sheets of paper. And I would go out to this local paper store called Kelly Paper, and I would buy 500 sheets of paper. I would sit behind Microsoft Publisher and I would write my articles. And I remember going to Kinko's and getting it folded for a penny each. So that's $5. For 17 plus 5, that was $22. It cost me $22 to have 500 newsletters printed. And here I am, I just finished UCLA. Everyone else has moved on to going to law school, medical school, or some other profession. And I'm in real estate. You don't need a bachelor's degree to get into real estate.
Right.
So I'm like, I got to prove myself. I got a head start. So I got to make this thing happen. So I took the flyers, I put on my backpack, and 5 o'clock in the morning, I was hitting the streets door to door and just passing out these flyers. And I would come back home and just waiting for the phone to ring. Because, okay, the flyers are there. They know about me. My phone number is on there, and the phones just will not ring. And I'm like, hold on a second. What is this all about? And I'm like, did the wind blow the flyers away? What happened? So I'm like, next week, again, we got to make this thing happen. And it was that relentless energy that I had. And so I started the whole flyers again, different article, different properties, and talk about what's happening in the neighborhoods. And I would go ahead and separate the zip codes, particularly as far as this had this many cells, that had this many cells. Print the flyers, go to Kinko's, get them folded, put on the backpack, go out there, pass out the flyers, come back and just watch the phone. It just would not ring. I'm like, damn it, what's going on here? And I'm like, I got to do this again. They got to be hearing about me. And I kept just pounding it. And one day I just got that one phone call finally. The phone just rang. I'm like, is it a cold call? What is this? Is it wrong? They got the wrong number. I picked up the phone and the person told me that, hey, is this Albert? I'm like, yes. We've been following you. They didn't want to list or sell a property, but they said, we've been following you. Yes, how can I help you? And they're like, it had nothing to do with buying or selling real estate, but it was more of, what are the rates at? Or, how much does house sell for across the street? It was something just your traditional question, or nothing that had to do with me getting a listing or a sale. Right. And they said they've just been following me. And I'm like, they've been following me. So something is working. They're actually hearing about me. I'm like, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm like, they're following me. So again, go back.
That kept you going.
Get back on the Microsoft Publisher, type up the flyers, go out there, pass out the flyers, everything. I finally land my first listing. Okay? Finally land my first listing. It was a 91207. I priced it for like $660,000. I walk into Coldwell Banker. I put that on the board with the expectation of getting it sold. And the people behind me are like, why'd you overprice that? I'm like, good. They're like, what do you mean good? You got to get the property sold. I'm like, no, I don't want the property to sell. They're like, why? I'm like, because I'm going to do as many open houses as possible and get as many buyers from this property as much as I can. Yeah. And so I did 1 open house, 2 open houses, and I worked the system. And so when I worked the system, what happened is these buyers would come to the property, and it was all about creating that relationship. Everyone's too busy trying to sell stuff. But when you really genuinely create that relationship, that goes much further than just getting a property sold. So from one property that never sold, I think on that one, I ended up getting 2 or 3 buyers that ended up buying properties from me later down the road. The home never sold. And the cool story about this is we pulled it off the market. Fast forward, I think it was 5 years ago, which is about 20 years later, same seller came back and we sold it for like $1.6 million later. I eventually ended up selling the house, but from that one open house, I was able to get my first sale. And by the way, my first sale did not happen until 7 months into the real estate business.
Wow.
Yeah.
7 months.
7 months.
So you didn't make any money for 7 months?
Nothing. And I had to give up half of my commission to the buyer's brother because he was licensed.
Wow.
Yeah. But what happened was after that first sale, then the snowball just started to build up. And then from that point on, I had something going. And the business was consistent. However, I wasn't dependent on the commissions because I knew the main reason I'm in real estate is on the investment side.
So during that 7-month span where you weren't getting any calls, you were kind of just grinding, passing out flyers door to door. I mean, you were actually going home to home.
Correct.
Driving, passing out flyers. Did you think you were going to quit at that point? I mean, what kept you going?
No, I was not going to quit until I at least I got one deal out of it. I told myself, Mike, you got to get a deal out of this. You can't put all this work in without that one deal. And
so no matter how long it took, you were going to stay through.
Yes, I kept asking questions. And they all said the same thing. They said, no matter what you do, every effort you're putting in today will pay off. Don't give up. The top players I'm talking about. And I sat there and I just listened to them.
Crazy. Yeah. And it's funny because all the top guys are all saying the same thing. Don't give up. It'll pan out. And look where you are today. So that's unbelievable. So how old were you when you sold your first property?
I was 23. 23.
Okay. Yeah. So you're just getting going, 23 years old. How old were you when you bought your first investment property?
24.
24. Okay. So take me through that journey briefly.
So I had the opportunity, my first property that was presented to me was a $67,000 single family home in Highland Park on Avenue 46. And so I get the opportunity to buy this property. Some lady had passed away. The trustee had acquired the property and wanted to unload it. And it was brought to my attention, and I had to go in all cash. And I had already started making enough money where I had the cash ready to go. So back then, even $67,000 was not a big sum. So I purchased the property for $67,000. I applied about $15,000 of capital improvements, which included painting, carpeting at the time.
Right.
I think drapes as well.
Okay.
You know, and put it back on.
Spruce it up.
Yeah. And I sold it for $130,000. Okay, $130,000. Wow. I wish I kept the property, but
wow.
I
First
sold it.
flip. Wow.
First flip.
Genius.
And I was like, what? After expenses and everything else, came out to like $50,000 back in 1998. That was a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
On one deal.
On one deal. And so I'm like, interesting. And I felt on top of the world. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. So this is how the short-term investing works. So when you're flipping it short-term, the investment side as far as with multifamily is long-term. And so with the short-term flip, I'm like, this is kind of cool. And early on, I remember that the secret to real estate is to diversify. On the investment side, you have the short-term investment, you have the long-term investment. You got to spread your wings because you never know at what point in time you're going to have to rely on one sector or the other. And so from there, after that first flip, I knew that investing in real estate was the way to go.
I feel like a lot of the audience would want to know, how did you find your first deal to invest in?
First deal as far as short-term?
Yeah, like the first ever deal, you're 24 years old. Did somebody just call you and offer it to you? Like, kind of touch on that a little bit more, please.
I guess there's a law of attraction. When people know that you're dying, or not you're dying for something, but you have the drive for something, they naturally come to you. I would say most of the deals that have come to me have kind of fallen in my lap because you've read the book, The Secret?
No, I haven't.
So it's a great book to read. And basically what happens is if your mind is capable of really believing in something so strongly, or you're focused on something so strongly, things just happen to come to you. So magnetic attraction just takes place. I like to resort to the Lord blessing me with a lot of golden opportunities, but there's also something that happens when you are able to really focus on things open up.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's like when you know what you're looking for, things align to your goal. How old were you when you made your first million?
First million. I would say I probably hit the first million when I was around 28 or 29, somewhere around that time. It was before I was 30 years old. And so when I first started, the most important thing was the goal setting, okay? The goal setting is huge. And when I first started real estate, about 3 months into it, I said, I got to put my goal in perspective. And there's a saying that says that a goal that's not written down is considered a dream. So you have to put your goals down on paper. It's huge.
Do you actually write them down?
Absolutely,
Wow.
to this day. So sometime in December, I actually planned for the following year as far as what I want to do.
Wow.
And so when you're able to chart things out, and this is what I want to make from the listing side, this is what I want to make from the selling, from the buyer side, this is what I want to make from the short-term flip side, this is what I want to make on the long-term side, this is what I want to make from stocks and bonds and dividends and etc. So once you're able to chart these things down, then you sit back and you apply the metrics you need in order to achieve this. For example, if I'm going to make on average about, let's say, $20,000 in commissions on a sale, okay? And it's going to come from the listing side, and it takes X number of phone calls or X number of flyers or X number of marketing pieces to go out there, then it becomes a mathematical equation. So in order to achieve this ratio, I got to make this many calls, I got to get this many contacts, I got to get this many follow-ups, I got to get this many listings signed, I got to get this many open houses, it all comes into this whole funnel and it just works itself out. So I'm really big on metrics. I'm really big as far as setting goals, and I'm really big as far as going back and refining goals. You have productive time, which is face-to-face with the client. You have indirect productive time as far as what you do to get face-to-face with someone. And you have non-productive time, which no matter what that time is spent, you're just not gonna have any contact with anybody, okay? Like if I'm gonna go out there and scan documents, or if I'm gonna go out there and do anything that's office-related work, you're not gonna meet a client face-to-face. Right. But if I'm out doing marketing, if I'm out making calls or whatever it is, I'm going to create that opportunity to have a productive time with someone face to face. And back then, I would zone down and just harness the details as far as how much time am I putting in for those opportunities. Then I said, how could I go ahead and distribute my indirect productive time to have more productive dollars? Because I went ahead and I actually equated, I sat there and mathematically calculated how much I was making when I was in front of someone face to face. And it was like, I don't know, $1,000 an hour, something ridiculous. But you can't just tomorrow say, I'm going to meet someone face to face as far as a client. You got to do certain things to get that phone call in order to create the opportunity to meet with someone face to face. So what I would do is I would go ahead and distribute the indirect productive time to have other people go out there and canvass neighborhoods or make calls in order for me to have that productive time. Because whether or not that person bought or sold each hour, I was making money because at some point in time, they're going to go ahead and buy or they're going to go ahead and sell. You have to measure things and put things in perspective. If you don't, then you're working out of chaos. And so I like to know what I'm putting in order to get what I'm going to get out of it. And if you're going to put zero into something, you get zero out of it. There's a lot of realtors in our business, for example, that just, wait and they're reactive. I consider myself more proactive. If you choose to be reactive, you're going to sit there and wait. You're going to have possibly a decent career. You may have a slow career. But when you're proactive, that's when the opportunities present themselves.
I love that. And what was the most amount of money you've made in a single year?
It's not the most amount of money that I've made as far as the most amount of money that I've been able to keep, because I know realtors that make a ton of money, but they blow through it like there's no tomorrow.
Right.
Some of the stuff I would like to share in private, but I've had some spectacular years. I'll tell you this much. I've made my most amount of money in the worst markets you could ever imagine.
Really?
Because what happens is most of the other realtors are the ones that kind of go south, or they're chasing other things, or they're getting out of the business. Yeah. And so anytime there's an opportunity where the market shifts, kind of like what's happening right now with the whole National Association of Realtors and what's going to happen with the selling office compensation and everything else. If we're talking about the real estate brokerage stuff, there are so many opportunities that are coming to play, but everyone's in panic mode right now. Oh my gosh, we got to ask for commissions from our buyers and we can't do this, we can't do that. Yeah. There are so many opportunities coming up right now. And if realtors can just harness the fact that focus on the positives, okay? Don't let the mass drift you in a different direction. Focus on the opportunities that are going to present themselves. And you'd be amazed as far as what types of things will come up. So I think I will possibly tap into that. I'm more focused on the investment side right now, but for those realtors that are listening to this message, there's a huge opportunity coming up. Please, by all means, keep your radar on that, because that's going to be awesome.
Do you think there's going to be a financial crash or a real estate crash in the near future?
Here's the thing is, right now we're dealing with the inflation that we've been dealing with. So with the way the properties have appreciated in value has been remarkable. And so I think what's going to happen with inflation, they've just recently had it under control with raising the rates and everything else. I don't think the rates are going to stay as high as they are right now. I think it was done temporarily in order to kind of slow down the inflation rate. Yeah. There's been investors have been very skeptical as far as buying the last year or two. On the other side, I've been buying a lot in the last couple of years only because I feel very strong these rates will adjust. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that when the opportunity presents itself, when people are swimming this way, I'm swimming upstream. And so with the rates doing what they're doing, I think it's presented a lot of golden opportunities. I've been able to get some phenomenal deals. Even with these rates, I got cap rates that are off the charts, only because everyone else is turning away from them. And so people are still going to rent. That's not going to change. And people are still buying properties. So real estate has always gone up. Even if you bought something that's overpriced today, over time that property is going to be worth a lot more money.
Would you say you're happier with money?
Money does not bring you happiness. I think at some point in time, I thought money may bring you happiness, but I think the most important thing for me is my family. And so when I started at early age and when I took off running, the main thing that I thought about was, I want to make sure I set this foundation before the kids come, because I really want to spend time with them. You could ask any one of them. Anytime there's been an event, a school pickup, kids want to go somewhere, whatever it is, I've always been available for them. When I was younger, my friends were off fixing up their cars, getting exhaust system, changing the speakers, do this, do that. I was saving like there's no tomorrow, And my main thing was, at some point in time, I want to be comfortable and I want to be able to be there for my family. And I gave up a lot at an early age to be able to go ahead and be in a position where when I want to buy something, it's not going to hold me back. And we've been blessed with that, where, we have the time for them now. and we can sit back. My wife doesn't have to work, and she's done a phenomenal job as far as raising 3 beautiful children and making sure that we're all fed with the proper nutrition that we need and everything else. And it's wonderful being able to sit back and say, you know what, now I'm going to enjoy my life.
What would you say is your worst financial mistake you've made in your career?
Is you can't sit there and hit home runs all the time.
Yeah.
If you're not losing, then you're not probably at your full potential here. So were there properties that I bought and tried to fix up and sell and I lost on? Yes, of course. Were they great losses? No, they weren't. So I was fortunate enough where the losses were minimal, but in the meantime, you learn from your losses. Okay, now when you learn from a loss, guess what? That loss is worth it. Because you don't repeat the same mistake twice.
You can't achieve success without some risk. How do you maintain cash flow on your investments?
Great question. So there's 4 reasons why you invest in real estate, okay? Number 1 is a cash flow, okay, which is your income minus your expenses, which your net amount is. Most people think that that's how you go about buying real estate. And a lot of times what happens is people come to me and say, okay, well, if I buy something for, let's say, $1 million, and our interest rate's at 6.5%. I got to pay for insurance, which is elevated, and got to pay for a plumber. I got to pay for this. There's nothing left. Even after 40%, nothing's left. Then comes the equity buildup. So if you're getting something nowadays, you have interest-only loans, but back then there was no interest-only loans. So you buy a property, you get a 10-year or 5, 7, or 10-year fixed-rate loan, but it's amortized over 30 years. Okay, where the interest rate is stable and it adjusts itself. Before that time, there was a balloon payment where after a certain period of time, you have to pay off the loan.
Right.
But anyways, make the long story short, every time you made a payment, you have a portion that goes towards your principal reduction and you had your interest. Right. So as your principal is being reduced, your equity in the property begins to increase. That's your second way of making money because your tenants are paying that. The third one is depreciation. And that's huge once you start acquiring properties. You're able to depreciate a property over a course of 27.5 years. So hypothetically speaking, if you bought something for, let's say, $4 million, and if they allocated $1.3 million to land, then that $2.7 million could be depreciated over 27.5 years.
Right.
Okay? So over 27.5, it's $2,750,000. So if you have $2,750,000 allocated to the building cost, when the land value is taken out, you could essentially depreciate $100,000 a year from your taxes.
Wow.
Which is huge.
That's huge.
And the fourth one, which is the biggest one, is what? Appreciation. Okay, so even if I buy a property today that's not making me any cash flow, is interest only, not doing anything as far as that's concerned, and let's assume for a second that there's no depreciation being taken into place, properties appreciate tremendously over time, especially in California. So I would say a majority of the wealth that we have today has been derived just from the properties organically appreciating in value.
Right.
That's huge. And I don't care if you have your real estate license, I don't care what industry you're in. Anybody could invest in real estate. Anybody, whether you're a dentist, you're an architect, you're a teacher, whatever it is. So small or big, just plug your money into some sort of investment vehicle and just let it sit. Over time, appreciation is going to be your best friend.
What would be your advice to somebody who's starting from ground zero?
Get off social media.
Really?
Get off TikTok, get off Instagram, get off Facebook, that stuff just drains you. It takes your mind off of so much productivity. I'm not saying get off of it. Do it within reason. Set a timer.
Yeah.
Whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that stuff could just suck you dry. Recently, I haven't been posting much only because I've been more focused on what I really want to go after. I have achieved so much in the last 6 months because I've kind of shunned away from the whole social media platform. I mean, I'll go on for about 5 or 10 minutes, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And you have to put your goals in writing. You have to. Whether it's you want to lose a certain amount of weight, or you have a certain car you want to buy, or you want a certain amount of income you want to make, whatever it is, you got to put in writing. And the other important thing is you have to have an accountability partner. That's huge. Someone you could answer to. So if you have someone that's waiting for your progress or waiting to hear about your results, you have to have that person you have to answer to. It's far more attainable when you know, crap, I got to tell this person what happened this week.
Yes.
Share your goal with that person. It's got to be someone you trust. It's got to be someone that you could rely on that's gonna want the best for you. And the other important thing I want to share is when you ask successful people for help, they help you. I've gotten some of the most valuable information from other successful people that have helped me grow in my journey to success. And oftentimes what happens is people are timid or they're afraid to ask someone for help. And you'd be surprised how many people, I'm sure with your podcast and your production, how many people have shared how much information with you. So you just have to ask for it.
It's true.
You know, I've rubbed shoulders with some really, really big people. And the other most important thing, which I have to touch on, this is really important. You're in competition with only one person, and that's yourself. That's it. That's it. You're not in competition with other people. When you begin to be in competition with someone else, I'm sorry to say this, but there's always going to be someone doing better than you.
Yeah.
There's someone out there who's doing much better than me in real estate. Good for them. I would love to have lunch with them.
Yeah.
I want to learn more from them. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you're in competition with yourself, then you have that one person you're up against. Look at the mirror, tell that person what you want, and go after it.
Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you guys got tremendous value out of this video. Please like, subscribe, and share. Comment below who we should interview next. We'll see you in the next video.